Hey guys, I am back, and this is a continuation of the series on what are your spiritual gifts. And I started out with clairaudience. And so in the first video, I told you exactly what clairaudience is. And in this video, I want to talk to you about my personal unfoldment of clairaudience. And then what it sounds like to me, like what does it sound like to hear from spirit? And this is very interesting. So this will be a somewhat longer video compared to the other videos, just because it's like a mini story, but I promise I'm going to try to condense it down. So in the first video, I talked about what clairaudience is. It is clear hearing, and it is hearing from the spirit world. Now, the funny thing is I wouldn't call, now that I know what it sounds like, I don't know if I would call it clear hearing. Like, I don't know, because in the tone of voice that you hear me speaking, very loud, very clear, very, very southern, it does not come like that. And if you're not present, if you're not paying attention, you can miss it. And so in the first video, again, I talked about what the four are, and I will just give you a brief synopsis real quick of how they came through for me consciously. All right. So clairsentient and cognizant are two that I have always had, and I was conscious of it. One we call being an empath, and just feeling things. And then the other one, claircognizant, is clear knowing. Now, clear knowing, I can't wait to get into that story too, because it's similar to clairaudience, but I have been both of those like all my life. I don't remember a time that I was not. So once I began to go on the spiritual journey 10 years ago, and I began to learn about the clairs, I instantly knew that I was those things, but I kept wondering, like, I wonder if I'll ever be like clairaudient. Is this something that I am? I just had an interest in it. And I tend to believe, coming from a business background and a component of different spiritual laws, anything you have a desire to do, there usually is a rudimentary level of ability that's there, right? And I'm going to repeat that. It's a rudimentary level of potential and ability that is there, or you wouldn't have an interest in it. Like, there are just certain things that I have. Like, when I say zero interest, I have zero. It's like, oh, that's cute for you. Like, there are certain parts of mediumship. There's physical mediumship. I have no interest in physical. Like, that's cute for those who can do it. But for me, I have no interest. So the likelihood that that is a rudimentary ability, not really likely. Okay. So anything you have that interest in. So as I began to learn, I just began to have this this interest in like clairaudience. I'm like, I wonder, like, what does it sound like? I wonder if I've ever heard it. Yes, I've heard people call my name before, and I'm like, did somebody call me? No one called me. Like, is that clairaudience? Like, I just had this whole little thing. About maybe 5 years ago, it's been a good minute, I began to get ringing in my ears, specifically my right ear, but not all day, only at nighttime after it got quiet, or if it was during the day, it was during my periods that I was meditating or something where it was just super, super quiet. And so I was aware enough, because of my claircognizant, clear knowing, I was aware enough to know, like, I think my clairaudience is coming in, but it's been happening for years and it wasn't there. So I have a friend, and I need to ask her permission before I say her name. I'm sure she wouldn't mind, but I'm gonna ask her to make sure before I say her name. I have a friend, she's on Facebook, and so she does readings sometimes online. And so I asked her a question one day, and I was telling her about the reading, and during her reading, I was telling her about the ringing, and she was like, that's really funny, Stephanie, because I've been watching you and I could have sworn you were already clairaudient. And then she was like, but it seems like it's the clear knowing, claircognizant, that you've been pulling from all this time. And I was like, that's interesting. No, but I think it's going to open up. And she was like, it's real funny because all of your gifts are going to open up, yada, 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 yada. And she was like, and the clairaudience is definitely your main gift. Now, when we got done, I was thinking, that is so odd. How is my main gift not the first one that opened up for me? Like, that is really, really odd. So I went on, and now, and she told me like how to get the ringing, like say, I can't hear you, be clear. And I started working on that day. And within a week, I still get the ringing from time to time. Within a week though, if I get the ringing, I'll tune in and the ringing will stop, and then I can hear. And because of what she had just said about the ringing, I instantly understood that what I was hearing was clairaudience. But this is the funny thing. It was actually no different than what I've been hearing all my life. Like, I hope I don't make this story confusing. So when I would say, I can't hear, can you say it in a way in which I could hear? The ringing would go down, and then almost a whisper would come up. It's very subtle. And this is why it was confusing for me. It sounds like my voice. Now, I've heard a lot of other people who are clairaudient say that they could hear it in spirit voice, but further research and people who are extremely gifted mediums, there's only a small percentage who actually hear in the voice of the spirit talking to them, based upon like tons of research, et cetera, et cetera. So once I realized this, instantly I was like, hold your freaking brakes. I've always heard this. Like, not even joking. This isn't new. I've heard this forever. I thought I talked to myself. Like, just legitimately have a straight up conversation with me. So I'm going to tell you how this happens. And I can even go back and give you a time when my clairaudience was definitely loud in my voice though. And I ignored it to my detriment. So back when I was maybe 18 or 19, I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. I'm driving to Atlanta, which is about an hour and a half away on I-20. I'm on the highway. I cross the Alabama-Georgia line, and I instantly hear my voice in my head say, get off on the next exit and stop at the rest stop. I open my mouth audibly in my car alone and say, I don't have to pee. Why would I go to a rest stop? I then audibly hear my voice again say, you need to get off and go to the rest stop. And I'm like, I don't have to pee. Like, straight arguing. It's funny as I tell the story now, because in hindsight, I'm like, who argues with themselves that hard and don't even realize that they're not really talking to themselves? But I did. And especially at that time, because I was still real in the church. And so even if I thought it was a spirit or a guide or any of those things, it would have freaked me out. So, things really unfold, I guess, the way they need to unfold. And anyway, I didn't listen. And one exit past that, I was in a 5-car pileup. Whereas if I had gotten off, I would have missed the entire car accident. Okay. That's not the first time. I have had that experience so much. Almost on a daily basis, I have a conversation with myself. I've always considered it talking to myself. And I'm like, I just have great conversation with myself. Like, myself internally start the conversation. My mouth externally finishes the conversation. But it never even occurred to me that it was spirit, because it sounded like me. It was a muted version of me, but it sounded like me. And so as this began to unfold and I hear the ringing, I ask, and the ringing goes down and the voice goes up, I instantly was like, this isn't a new gift. So now I can actually say that I have been clairaudient. I don't remember a time that I was not clairaudient, now that I know what clairaudient was or is or was. So to most people, and I feel like most people are in this place of, like, if you're like, I just feel that I'm clairaudient. You're waiting to hear something outside of you, and more often than not, the sound is in you. Now, there are moments, and I've heard this happen, where people just really weren't paying attention, or they heard it and they were ignoring it, and they were like in life or death situations, that the voice would materialize outside of them to catch their attention. But for me, and from the research that I've been doing, the majority of people, the voice is internal. It's usually out of one ear and not both. And it almost feels like you're thinking. it really almost feels like you're thinking, okay? And that is what clairaudience sounds like for me. Again, it's clear hearing, but in my personal opinion, it's not that clear, especially if you are the type of person who's always talking. I'm a talker, by the way, but shockingly to people, I'm a talker because when I talk, I can talk, but I'm actually very quiet a lot. Meditation time is really important to me. I'm a night owl, and I'm a natural night owl, and now I kind of understand it because the world is up and moving and cooking and doing all those things in the daytime. It's very hard for my brain to shut down. And what happens is if you're always thinking, it's real hard to hear spirit. For me, let me say that. For me. So and I'm just sharing my experience, guys. I think it'd be really interesting to look at other people's experiences on YouTube if other people are talking about it, which I'm sure they are. But this is my personal experience. I also think that because the voice is internal, it makes it a little difficult to distinguish whether it is your thinking or spirit. And so the way I have been distinguishing it over the last few weeks, now that I know what it is, because I wasn't distinguishing it at first. I thought I was just talking to myself. So the way I've been distinguishing over the last few weeks is remembering that it's usually just one side for me. And then also what I'm hearing makes no sense for me. Now, an example is, let's go back to the car accident. I'm driving along, listening to Beyonce or Destiny's Child probably at that time. And all of a sudden, stop at the rest stop. I don't have to pee. What reason do you get off on a rest stop? If I had the knowledge then that I had now, I would understand that because there was no legitimate reason to think the thought, the bathroom, the rest stop, none of that was even on my mind. It popping up was my way of, if I had known, I would have known that it was my spirit guides telling me to get off the highway. Okay, to get the heck out of Dodge, right? And so that's another thing. So I know when it doesn't make any sense for me. And so recently I've been practicing, and I do mean practicing because there's been so many times that like I've been talking to a family member and they would say something about another family member. And as soon as they would say, I wonder what such and such would do, instantly on this side, I would hear whatever the answer was. And I'd be like, I think such and such. And I think that it's crazy because I think that I did know, I knew I was something like psychic. It's kind of hard to say psychic just because to me, often when you say psychic, you instantly think of like the places that you see on the side of the road with the palm and it's like, oh, psychic. And it feels really cheesy, right? And so that's something that I've been working on is based upon what society puts on things, the emotions that go along with it. But I've always been a person who could say, hey, especially for other people, I'm not necessarily that good with myself. I get in the darndest situations. But for other people, I would be like, you know what? That's not really feeling great to my spirit is how I would say it. Like, I don't think you would do that. I think if you do this, this will likely happen, right? So I always knew that I was highly intuitive. We'll use that word. I knew I was highly intuitive. I knew I could read into people. I knew I could read into situations. And I have actually, over the last 8 years of running my business, I've used that to not only help my own business, but to help my clients' businesses. And I think a lot of them knew that I would say, hold on, let me feel into it for a moment. I was using my psychic ability with that. This brings up a great conversation. Remember to say that, Stephanie. Remember that. Okay, let me make a note. Hold on. Okay, I had to make a note because something else I want to say. So I think I always knew, but I remember I didn't know that hearing that voice because it sounded like me. I didn't know that I was hearing from the actual spirit. I had no idea. I just thought because I'm some like psychic, as I would say, or intuitive, I would have the answer. I would hear the answer. I would say the answer. So yeah, it's something that's always been there with me. Now that I know, I could go back and think of the gazillion times that clairaudience has happened for me. It's actually a daily thing for me. And now that I know, it's strange because it's some form of comforting. for me. Now, you may have heard me mention, because I feel like in my intro video, I didn't say this, but I am both psychic and I am medium. And that means that not only can I, and I'm going to go into details on another video, but not only can I read energy and talk about the things that has happened past, present, and future for you, I can also hear from spirit. Okay. And I also can communicate. Let's not even say hear, just for the sake of the next thing I'm about to say. I can hear from spirit, but that doesn't mean that you're a medium necessarily. Confusing. I'll get there in a minute. So for me, I can communicate with spirits who have passed on. Let's say that like that. I feel like that's the perfect way to say that. Now, I made a note here about medium versus psychic, because people may assume that if you're clairaudient, you're a medium. That's not necessarily true. There are people who are clairaudient who hear from their guides, but they don't hear from other spirits. And I'm going to talk about that in a whole other video. And it's so crazy that I'm even making this video. Like, as I'm talking to you, I'm like, you know what? On some level, I think I've always known, because like I'm in a doctorate's program right now for something very similar to what we're talking about. And so as I'm talking to you, it's like, of course you are these things. Of course. Who's interested in these things? Anyway, so that's my unfoldment. I practice it regularly. I think I mentioned a second ago that like I've been giving readings. I've been giving medium readings, and I've been doing it just for me, really, because I want to hone in and be very clear about what the difference is in my voice and the difference is in spirit voice. And again, for me, it shows up. My voice is louder. Spirit voice is a whole lot more subtle. It is not that clear at all. It's very subtle. My voice has a question mark. Spirit voice is like, this is what it is. My voice, I fully understand it. It has a clear picture for me. Spirit voice, usually, especially if I'm talking to someone else, I have no idea what spirit voice is talking about. So an example is I was giving a reading the last week, and like in the midst of it, I heard divider, and I'm trying not to go too far because I feel like I'm skipping into other clairs, but I heard divider, and then I saw a picture of like a room divider. I had no idea what it meant, and I knew that my mind didn't come up with that. So I said it, and then what it meant, it talked about my client's divorce. It was a division that was happening, right? But I heard it. My mind couldn't have made that up. It would have no reason to make up divider. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I distinguish whether it's my voice or spirit voice. Now, I'm going to shut up now. I want to hear from you. If you are clairaudient and you hear any other way, I would love to hear about it. Or even if you're like, that's exactly how I hear. I would love to hear about it down in the comments. Let me know. And I can't wait to move on to the next video. The next video, I actually think I want to do a practice on how to harness your clairaudience, clear hearing, if that is one of your gifts. Yeah, I'm gonna have to meditate on what the practice is and get spirit to tell me. But I think that's going to be the next video. And then after this, we are going to move into clairvoyance. All right, guys. Bye. Oh, if you haven't subscribed yet, do it. Brand new channel. This is the third video. Share it with a friend if it helped you. Yeah. Bye.